Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Double Feature Podcast. I'm your host, Dean, joined here by the delightfully debonair, deceitfully candid Mr. David. David, how the hell you doing?
I'm going to accuse you of the murder, Dean.
I would like to take obvious for 300, Mr. Trebek.
Yeah, I would, the viewers can't see, but you are covered in blood right now, and it's a pretty suspicious way to show up to the recording.
I like this shirt. Come on. It's Kool-Aid, I swear to God. I swear to God, officer.
It is pretty hot out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing good. Could be better, could be worse.
Yeah, no kidding.
So what are the movies we are watching this week, sir?
Well, we were delighted this week to watch Knives Out and a spoofy, I'll dodge around the word terrible pairing of Murder by Death.
It is not a terrible movie, sir.
No, it's not a terrible pairing. I'm just being facetious. But,
I'm offended by your words.
I'll be offended as much as you
cancel
want.
David.
When we started this podcast, we originally set out with the goal of doing like a good movie and a bad movie every week. And it feels nice to actually get to test that out. Where again, not to say this movie is good or bad definitively, but to get to see if one movie that is the top of its game and one movie that
is on the lower end of the game.
Yeah, just doesn't quite measure up to the other.
Okay.
But I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, let's get into those log lines so we can really see what we got here.
All right, break it down.
A queasily candid nurse escapes the clutches of greed as the family she works for accuses her of murder and deceit. The elite of detectives is called to the home of a jealous colleague to determine once and for all who is the best of the best.
Ooh. I feel there's some mystery afoot on this one.
The game is afoot, Watson.
Okay, so which one would you like to start with first?
Well, I'm going to actually leave this up to you, because I think we could go either or. I mean, I feel like we're going to have a much longer discussion about Knives Out, but you know what? Why don't we save the best for last, and let's start with Murder by Death.
You, sir, are a savage, but okay.
Listen. So to preface this, Murder by Death is a spoof. And what we kind of wanted to do in pairing these movies together is two movies that aren't straight whodunit, right? Knives Out, as we'll learn later, is a transformation of the whodunit genre in a particular way. But this also is, you could call it
kind of a send-up to it.
It's a transformation in that it just makes fun of the whole thing. And it's fun. It's actually really fun. It was also very interesting to watch a movie that would not play today, but in its own time, it's probably comedy gold.
There's some stuff in Murder by Death that would absolutely get some actors canceled.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those things where, I mean, if we want to list off the offenses, the entirety of Peter Sellers.
Oh God. You know what?
Surprisingly, not his Japanese adopted son. I found little to do with him.
He just, I don't even know if a Japanese adopted son was even doing any shtick. Like, he was just acting like, honestly, he was acting like he was like 12 throughout the movie. Yeah. Even though his son's probably like in his 30s from what he looked like. he was like, "Oh, gee willikers, Pop, we're going on an adventure," and I thought that was a little weird. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, you
I'll
know,
let-
he
we-
was. It was that was a fairly, if anything, the tamest part of the movie. You know, we have Mr. Diamond with plenty of accusations of the risque.
Yes.
Let me go back
have
to the
all the
cast here so I know I
French.
get everybody correctly.
Also, we should
You can't.
preface this for Murder by Death is that this is a star-studded cast.
Oh, very star-studded. The plenty of stars that ended up getting through this: Truman Capote, Peter Falk, Peter Sellers, David Niven, Alec
James
Guinness. Yeah, we had an
Cromwell.
Obi-Wan Kenobi cameo.
Maggie Smith is in this.
Yeah.
She's Harry Potter.
Right.
Yeah.
Nancy Walker. There's plenty of people all around all this, and all of them do great. You know, it's interesting because while this was a pretty funny performance by everybody involved, it's also very stereotypical. While I'm not going to preface this by saying, I expected it to be the best of the best when it comes to comedy. It was very, I don't want to say hacky, but kind of normal jokes when what you would think would come along. There are a few things that were particularly funny, in that all the puns are pretty good, because they kind of come out of nowhere. None of them are expected. The whole Twain
There's a
thing.
lot. Yeah, Lionel Twain, who lives on 22 Twain Avenue.
Yeah, or let alone Frida Train. I mean,
the blind butler and the deaf nurse.
Yeah. Oh, that was one that I actually was like at first, because Alec Guinness plays a blind butler, and then his partner in crime, I believe. Let's see, which one was it? Was it Eileen Brennan or Eileen Brennan?
It might have been. Oh, it was Nancy Walker. Nancy Walker was the maid.
Interesting. That's another thing, is you can never, for some reason, people back then kind of all looked the same after a certain point. So Walker plays his partner in crime, who is I guess you would call it dumb and deaf new kitchen manager who is called to the property. It's kind of funny because at first I'm thinking, like Truman Capote's character Lionel Twain probably hired them to like make everything go even further wrong for the detectives. And now, as we learn, we will get no satisfaction by the end of the movie is on that front or any other front. So,
well,
but yeah, plenty funny. Let's run through that plot to kind of see what does transpire.
Okay, so I think first things first, we really need to get a grip on the characters we're dealing with here, is because most of the comedy, most of the plot kind of stems on these weird caricatures of like mystery movies. Actually, mystery novels is a lot of what this is sending up. For example, we have James Coco playing Milo Pereire, which is literally just a send up to like Agatha Christie, Hercule Poirot, like the French aristocracy kind of,
right,
like detectives you would see. Peter Falk is playing Sam Diamond, who is literally every Humphrey Bogart character rolled into one as a detective. Am I wrong on that one?
You're completely right. He does an impression of him that may or may not be legitimate. By the end of the movie, we still have zero clue. But to go further down the line,
we have Elsa Lancaster playing Jessica Marbles, which is like, I guess she's kind of like a Murder, She Wrote kind of character, old lady solving crimes.
Yeah, I'd say
kind of deal. Yeah. David Niven as Dick Charleston, and he is the gentleman sleuth.
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's half making fun of the sleuth genre, half making fun of, generally that kind of character that's, nose upturned.
Yeah, and then last but certainly not least, we have Peter Sellers as Sidney Wang, who is literally a Charlie Chan parody.
Yeah,
it's a little interesting.
It's kind of interesting because I wasn't sure after a certain point if they meant to make him, white guy playing Asian character for the story or for fun. They made fun of it at plenty of points and called attention to it. So part of me was like, so are they trying to deconstruct that method of production? Because that's also being guilty of the method of production while doing it. I don't know.
It was kind of interesting because I feel like they casted Peter Sellers in this to play Sidney Wang because they were like, look, it's Peter Sellers. No one can get mad at Peter Sellers. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's not to say that it's worth getting angry over now. I mean, this movie is practically almost 50 years old, but
yeah, I believe there's only one person in the cast, or maybe two people in the cast that are still with us.
Yeah, based on these pictures up on Google here. Well, no, James Cromwell is still alive. He was in The Detour actually recently, and that's one of my favorite shows on that channel.
Maggie Smith is still alive. I think she's 90 though.
Yeah, and then I believe Peter Falk is definitely dead. That's sad.
Oh, Peter Falk passed away a couple years ago. Hurt my soul.
Almost a decade ago now. Wow.
Yeah, and then Richard Narita, who plays Willie Wang, Sidney Wang's son, he is also still with us.
Yeah.
But yeah, much of the cast is passed on at this point. So
now,
it's a little rough trying to cancel them, I guess, would be the thing.
Yeah. To bring up a side note, maybe it's going over my head. I understand the connection in Willie Wang. Which, but Sidney Wang, am I missing something in Sidney Wang?
Is a Wang by any other name just as sweet? I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Interesting.
Honestly, but yeah, I have no idea if Sidney Wang is supposed to be a play on word or not.
Yeah, because
I might be a little out of the loop.
Well, they already got Dick taken care of.
There's a lot of random Dick jokes in this movie, everybody.
Well, a lot of random just like puns all around. I mean, the whole Twain thing, the Wang thing, I feel like there's supposed to be something in Benson Mum.
Yeah. Because when you're English or whatever, you say, oh, yes, mum. Like, yes, mum, yes, sir, kind of thing. It's just like one of those things where it's like, I guess in America it'd be like, yeah, dude, it's all good, dude. That's the joke. His name is Benson Mum, and they're just like, oh no, I'm a sir. And it's like, oh no, sir, it's Benson Mum.
Okay.
And they're just like, why are you calling me mum? And yeah, it's supposed to be it's a really weird and kind of old joke on how English people talk.
Fair enough. I mean, I guess I'm not supposed to be getting all this slang from 50 years ago, but
yeah.
So I guess, like we said, to start the movie, all the characters are obviously invited to the home. The movie opens on somebody sending out invitations, which in hindsight, the ending is in the beginning of this movie, and I'll get to that later once we actually get to the end. But remember this moment where there's a hand signing and dating and sending all of these letters. So we get our first glimpse of Alec Guinness in that moment, and obviously Blind Butler goes to lick the stamps and
slam them onto the letters. He totally misses. I don't know why I found that like just dumb funny.
Yeah,
I laughed at that.
It's dumb funny, but the thing I found even more funny was that I found out I never want to watch Alec Guinness lick a stamp ever again.
The close up of his tongue didn't do anything for you?
Didn't do a whole lot, and actually just subtracted a lot. But I still love him, and as we move on, the characters all find their way to the house, and there's about 10 minutes of shenanigans going through that.
Oh yeah, they have every time one of the characters comes up to the front door, a gargoyle falls from the top of the building and is meant to, be a trap for the detectives.
Yeah.
But the issue with that, or I guess the funny thing with that, is it's always a new gargoyle, and somebody goes down there and cleans up after it and then redraws the shoe prints to the size of everyone that comes in, so they're accurate, like, shoe prints, I guess.
Yeah, which I guess Lionel Twain could, as he hasn't shown up yet, could be just running around the mansion, really going the extra mile for these people.
Mm-hmm.
But that would make him a gracious host.
That's true.
And as everybody shows up, like I said, taking up 10 damn minutes of the movie, they all congregate in the hallway to get ready for dinner, and finally get to the dining room where we'll be spending the next 45 minutes to an hour.
Minutes? Yeah. There's some breaks to the kitchen, but that's about it.
Yeah. This is going to be a quick one, ladies and gentlemen, because literally we have nowhere else to go for the next hour. They spend literally an hour. I think I clocked in from about the 20 to 30 minute mark up until the last half hour of the movie was totally taken up by, which I guess is not an hour in retrospect.
Basically almost the whole second act is in the dining room.
Yeah, which is interesting because, again,
it balances between the dining room and the kitchen, but they're in the kitchen for 10 minutes.
The kitchen is kind of like this peninsula to the real continent of the dining room. It's they get pulled back in by the rope because of a certain gag that goes on where, first to preface it, we finally meet Lionel Twain. There's plenty,
and he appears in the most 70s light show you can imagine.
That's pretty badass, though.
I mean, I would want to appear like that if I had dinner guests.
Yeah, if my entrance at a dinner party was like Neil Peart being rolled in on his drum set at a Rush concert, then yeah, I'd like that too.
It'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty sweet.
So there's lights flashing, there's a fog machine, and he shows up out of nowhere, and the game is explained. The reason why everybody's been called to the mansion is explained. Lionel Twain is, like I said, the jealous colleague who wants to defraud all of these detectives who are apparently the best in the world. Everybody there has always solved their cases they've been hired for. There's no unsolved cases, as he puts it. And he wants to find out who is the real master. So there will be a murder at midnight, and the murderer will both be in the dining room as well as their victim.
And it's kind of interesting because obviously I think anybody can really guess who's going to be the victim, right? Like Lionel Twain's going to be the victim of this shenanigan.
Well, I actually was kind of fooled by that bit.
Really?
Yeah, and maybe this speaks to the way we both watched the movie. I think Dean definitely watched it as a spoof, whereas I, for a moment, kind of took it seriously, and maybe that's my own fault.
You were looking at it as like it's a whodunit movie, but the dial is turned one direction.
Yeah, but I also think that the movie itself was trying to get a viewer to do that. Maybe a more unsuspecting viewer like me. Because as we'll learn later, the whole point of the movie is to deconstruct and accuse, the genre of whodunit, mostly,
especially these archetypes of detective characters.
Yeah, though they point the finger specifically at murder novels. They basically say that you've been fooling us with clues,
introducing characters at the last chapter that we've never seen before,
withholding evidence, creating twists and turns that don't make sense, and it's like
the leaps of logic that only work if you already knew who the killer was at the start of the book.
Yeah, and I got certainly fooled because I bought in, and from that moment I'm thinking, okay, well, yeah, who is going to get murdered? Because immediately afterward, the characters resolve to join hands and wait until midnight in order to definitively prove that there can't be a murder and there can't be a murderer if we're all here and we know we're here.
Yeah.
Which, you know,
I guess the logic would be that they would stop any of them from being the murderer because, like, you know, any of them move, they know.
Yeah, and, you know, it made sense for a moment. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens, because I think that's the point they're making, is like, you can't just make sense for a moment and expect the payoff to be worthwhile. You're tricking the audience, obviously, into not getting what they want and you not knowing what you're doing, which, you know, in that way actually makes me respect this movie after the fact. But because it, you know, it's
during the movie you were a little annoyed.
Yeah, definitely. Because, you know, as we move on, the pact between the characters is made, and then there's about 25 to 30 more minutes before midnight in the movie, and they use every minute of it. There's this is when the tangents to the kitchen start occurring, and, you know, every now and then we get a little comedic relief from Alec Guinness and Walker in the kitchen, as, you know, their inability to communicate is fairly funny. Obviously, in that Alec Guinness really plays up the blind thing while she just kind of watches.
She's all reaction shots.
Yeah.
Because she, what is it? She can't read, she can't hear, and she can't speak. So she is literally cut off from the world of communication.
Yeah, it's literally addressed as she has a note in which she had somebody write the notes for her, and she has no idea what they say.
Yeah.
This movie is driving me insane.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So, yeah, they're there, and she's supposed to be, like, cooking the dinner, but she doesn't do it because she doesn't know what's supposed to happen. And there's a whole comedy bit in that Alec Guinness fires her and throws her out, but because he's blind, he doesn't actually know if he threw her out, so he just closes the door and she's just sitting at the dining table.
Yeah.
Or at the kitchen work table, and she's just sitting there kind of confused as to what's going on.
Yeah.
They get a lot out of that shtick, I guess.
And, you know,
a little Laurel Hardy play there.
In a way, would you say this is a MacGuffin?
What do you mean, though?
Well,
I know what a MacGuffin is, but I don't know if this qualifies a MacGuffin.
Now, this is an interesting point. Is a while ago, I used to TA for a screenwriting class. We had the same discussion. Is the difference between a MacGuffin and a red herring? And as I'm going to read the definition for here, a red herring is something that misleads or distracts from a relevant or important question, whereas a MacGuffin, in fiction, a MacGuffin is an object, device, or event that is necessary to the plot and the motivation of the characters, but insignificant, unimportant, or irrelevant in itself. So maybe this is more of a red herring because you have these two characters, right? The blind butler and the dumb and deaf maid, and you expect something to come out of it, but really it has zero to do with anything, and actually has zero to do with the plot as a result. So maybe it is more of a red herring in that way.
Actually, there was because Alec Guinness gets murdered during the second act, and I think that only served the plot in terms of getting the detectives to kind of show off that they're actually like detectives. They're not just bits.
Yeah.
Because they do have some amount of like detective skill. They do know, like, they can deduce things. There's some sleuthing going on, if I can use sleuthing as a verb.
Yeah.
And I think that's what it serves, but it doesn't really. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't really do anything for the plot.
Yeah.
And
because
we also find out that the maid is a robot.
That's a dummy, I think is what they determine.
Yes. Also, when it's in the case, though, it looks like something you get at a sex shop.
Yeah.
That case does not do justice.
More to the point, I find it very dubious that dummy would have been able to fool anybody into being a real person. But
Yeah.
why am I questioning this movie? Yeah, so every now and again we get something from them up until the butler is murdered, and that's kind of what continues this. Let's go into the kitchen and go back into the dining room, or really go back into two different dining rooms, because they spend about well, I don't even know what they spent on it, but it was a lot of time spent on this one yag where they would go back into the dining room and it would be empty. They would exit, count to 10 seconds, then go back into the dining room where everybody was there again. And for the life of me, while I was watching the movie, I was like trying to figure it out with the detectives. What is going on here? But then I remembered, oh, I'm an idiot. And
this movie is taking place inside of a literal funhouse.
Yeah, and I guess listen, I'm not going to walk the line of actually defining what is a MacGuffin and what isn't, and what is a red herring and what isn't. But yeah, maybe it's that those definitions are left up for serious moments, and that in comedy it's just kind of like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. So what they do discover is that the rooms are two identical dining rooms that can move completely silently in between each other when the door is closed. And I'm like, that is what? I'm pretty sure that's like kind of impossible, because this is a big like Victorian mansion style dining room, and they're just like, oh, it moves completely silently, no one notices it moves, and you can just, it's like teleportation, and it's these two completely identical dining rooms.
Yeah, something, again, I was expecting it to be something where they made fun of like production, or made fun of specifically like false bookcases or something, where people disappear in these sort of mansion mysteries. But they really never explain what that whole thing was. And they, of course, they didn't need to, and nor was I ever going to get one, because, again, I'm a fool for watching this movie with any sense of taking it seriously. Moving on, though, they eventually are all back in the dining room, and it's about to strike midnight, literally with a half hour left in the movie, despite the fact that this was made to be the kind of inciting incident, I guess you could say, at 40 minutes into the movie.
Honestly, looking at this structurally, I just kind of realized that I'm like, is this supposed to lead us into the climax?
I guess,
or
but it seems like the thing that would lead you into the story itself. And again, maybe this is us taking the movie too seriously, and I feel like we're beating a dead horse at this point. But
well, because the inciting incident to me was when Truman Capote showed up and told him what was going to happen, like there was going to be a murder.
Well, right, I think that's my point, is that happens between 35 to 40 minutes into the movie, which is kind of well past the point it should anyways, because of the amount of time we spent watching characters actually try to get to the mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But again, for a spoof comedy like this, they probably just sat down and was like, okay, we want to do this with the story, but let's just think of any of the shit we can come up with that would be funny, because I guess that would be the point to sell tickets in 1976, is just get people into the theater to laugh.
It's a thing, they had 50 pages of actual story, and they needed to fill up the other 40 pages with jokes, and they just kind of didn't care where they ended up.
Yeah, big old me trying to actually make fun of these people for probably pulling in plenty of money with this movie. But we'll see about that later. So it's the clock strike midnight. The clock strikes midnight. Yes, the clock strikes midnight, and obviously nobody is murdered at the dinner table. Truman Capote is murdered. Lionel Twain.
He is murdered. No one knows where he was, where he came from, because he disappeared for like the whole second act of the movie, basically.
Kind of. He's in the walls. It's a couple times he's poking through the eyes of a taxidermy
of paintings of moose.
Yeah. And he yells at characters, including Sidney Wang, to use their pronouns and prepositions.
Oh yes, because Sidney Wang, or Peter Sellers, he's using this kind of I guess, caricature of like a Chinese accent.
Yeah, the stereotypical I'm going to be a white man playing an Asian character,
Which is why I think it was like intentional. They got like Peter Sellers to play this Charlie Chan like gimmick.
Yeah, and he's a master.
because
he's a master of impressions, I guess you could say too. But not to say that this is an impression you should master, but
it was a different time,
Yeah, I think that's the point. Is that it was back then a way for them to comment on that, as kind of backwards the argument becomes later on in life. But again, love Peter Sellers anyways. So Lionel Twain plops into the dining room literally with a knife in his back, and now the game is afoot to figure out, okay, the butler was murdered, Lionel Twain was murdered, what's going on here?
The maid wasn't real.
The maid is apparently fake, even though we as the maybe that's just dramatic irony. I'm not going to give this movie that much credit.
Wow, savagery.
So now the game is afoot to figure out what really is going on here, and we finally get to go someplace other than the kitchen and the dining room,
which is back to their bedrooms to contemplate the plot, I guess.
Yeah, the characters literally just go back to bed, which is also a little bit of like, oh, really? Like, we can't even get any sort of shenanigans or action, or which, I think just speaks to the point that they had a set and they couldn't go beyond the set. But
okay, I gotta ask, how many bedroom sets do you think they actually had? Do you think they just redressed one over and over again?
Yeah.
Or do you think there was at least like 2 or 3?
If you actually look at the shape of the rooms, they do look pretty similar, or at least a few of them do. I don't know if they did they might have had a couple, but one room in particular, and I believe it was the room of the Charlestons, looked kind of not. It didn't look like a 4-sided room. It looked something that was like 5-sided, maybe diamond shaped.
Yeah.
Because of the way the bed was against the wall, which is an interesting thing to think about, because really this movie was made at not only at a time, but also probably with budget in mind to maximize production value. And that manifests in that a lot of the outside sets were probably the same, because in the beginning part of the movie, when everybody's driving to the mansion, it's all like dark, foggy, random back road, and I'm sure a lot of it was just, I don't know, let's shoot it differently from this angle, and then we'll shoot it from this angle, it'll all look different. Whereas the only outside set that actually probably ended up being needed to be different was the bridge moment that the Wang family had to cross in the beginning. Legitimately funny moment, actually.
Sidney Wing says his adoptive Japanese son in their old car
jalopy
to go over this jalopy over this bridge that's on the border of collapsing. His son gets over, white knuckling it, and he's like, "Dad, I made it across the bridge." And then Sidney Wang yells,
"Good, now come back to get me." And
it's one of those things where it's a nice, it's just a nice gag.
Yeah, a nice gag is a way of putting it, because I think those were the moments where I actually laughed more than what the movie was trying to do. Is just the gags. But in either way, or specifically every moment that had Alec Guinness in it with the whole blind thing, while certain things were stereotypical, it was really enjoyable to see the specificness that they got with those gags. Like, for example, there was a gag where they go to put the soup down at dinner, and there's no soup in there because Alec Guinness can't see that the
maid didn't make anything.
Yeah, that she literally couldn't have read the menu for the night because she's deaf and dumb.
And illiterate.
I lost my train of thought.
Achievement unlocked.
Where were we before?
You were like miles away on this movie, man. Jesus.
Yeah, you know, I'm like way off track because of what this movie is. I mean, this movie is way off track with itself. I guess we'll start back at the
them going to bed.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is all these characters, they go to bed. They all have their separate rooms with the companion they brought with them.
Right.
Their chauffeur, their wife, their friend, what have you. And suddenly, all of these people, an attempt on their lives is made, as is usual.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, the Charlestons have a scorpion in their bed. A really funny line, actually. You know, Dora Charleston, Maggie Smith, asks, when should we try and run away from the scorpion? And Dick Charleston answers with, no, we shouldn't move, possibly for the rest of our lives. No, I thought that was there's a few ones in here that are real zingers.
Oh, yeah.
The Wangs have a snake in their room.
Diamond and Tess, they have
a bomb
in their room.
Really raising the stakes there. Jessica Marbles and her old grandmother have deadly gas pouring into the room from the vents or from the grandmother. We don't really know.
Mm-hmm.
And then Perrier and his chauffeur, Marcel, the room is pulling a haunted mansion on them, and the ceiling is shrinking.
Yes.
Or I guess it's a reverse haunted mansion.
To make a note about that, it really looks way worse than it probably actually was on set because James Cromwell is a giant.
Oh yeah, I think there was a level to which they cast him for that gag specifically. Because the other thing is, I don't know, maybe it's just because, again, we're from a different generation, but when I think of James Cromwell, I don't think this French character, whereas back then, I guess he kind of looked to fit the part. He does look pretty, uppity Frenchman.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting to see him not being cynical. But
not being everybody's pissed off dad.
Yeah. So as all the gags occur, it's thought to be that everybody dies. I mean, it's pretty dire straits for everyone. The scorpion in the bed of the Charlestons, the snake in the room of the Wangs, in which Sydney Wang doesn't want to get out of bed. Jessica Marbles and her darling grandmother are locked in their bedroom. The Perriers are obviously going to be crushed to death, and Diamond and his sweet mistress are going to be blown to smithereens. But we cut to I guess you call it master's office. I don't know.
Yeah, the study.
Yeah, the study. That's actually a good word for it. In which Alec Guinness is sitting at the desk. Lo and behold,
you say the thing. I'm good. You say the thing. Say the thing.
I was just gonna say the Master Jedi is behind it all.
Damn it! You stole my gimmick. So I make the Star Wars jokes here.
Yeah, maybe you should. I don't know if I was the right person for it. So why don't you reveal the I guess you could call it resolution?
Yeah, we'll call it a resolution. So, as Alec Guinness is there and he's crossing the names off his list, we then have every pair of detectives and their companions come in to reveal that they know exactly who did it, only for the next pair of detectives and companions to reveal, no, that's not it. That's a red herring. You're actually this person, and then this person, and then this person, and then it all culminates with Peter Falk, Sam Diamond, and Tess coming in and be like, "No, you're a real Sam Diamond. I'm an actor from San Francisco. I play the Marriott on Tuesdays. How's it going?" And basically reveal that Peter Falk was just an actor the whole time, and the real Sam Diamond was actually Alec Guinness. And then Alec Guinness says, no, you're all wrong, and then takes off his mask and it's Truman Capote. And then this is where the most justified revenge plot is revealed in cinema history, where he basically calls out all the characters for not only being terrible detectives, but for using all the tropes of mystery fiction to justify their existence. Namely, the red herrings that make no sense, the character showing up in the last section of the book, the leaps of logic that don't work, all these plots and schemes and whatnot show up that they were making fun of throughout the movie, and all these characters, and that these characters just used to explain who this guy is.
Yeah, the movie gets intellectual finally, and
it took like 90 minutes.
Yeah, it took literally 90 minutes, but it was kind of one of those things where at the end I was like, oh yeah, I was fooled into thinking I was going to get anything out of this. And that's the point, is these 70s spoofs, particularly noting Mel Gibson movies.
You mean Mel Brooks?
Fucking A, dude.
Dude, like, it's fine. Just it's cool. Have a cup of coffee. Relax.
The sad
it's okay.
thing is I did have my cup of coffee. Particularly noting Mel Brooks movies is that the poking of fun at genres is out of love for the genre, right? And we often think of his two greats, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, which this movie does.
Even Spaceballs.
Yeah.
Men in Tights. Actually, I just realized Mel Brooks does a lot of like parody and spoof.
And that's his
movies.
thing. But like, this is what that movie tries to be. And like, I think it just lacks the epicness of those movies and the scale of those movies, because it's still too small. It's still too contained. I feel like there was so much more they could have done. And as we've been, griping about while dragging our feet through getting through the plot, it's at every moment I was expecting a little bit more fun to be made about certain tropes. Like I was expecting some sort of hallway chase that we do see in like Scooby-Doo cartoons, or they did the false door thing, but there was never like any sort of like, let's explore the mansion and the different rooms in the mansion to find clues. There's no murder weapons really. There's just still a lot there's a lot left to be desired at the end of the whole thing as far as comedy goes. And while I get the point, I really wish they would have done more, because I know these players too had the comedy chops to really take this and make a laugher out of it.
Yeah, I can see where you're getting at.
Yeah. But that kind of wraps up the movie in a sudden and unsatisfying way. The characters all go their separate ways, and obviously there's one more twist at the end with Alec Guinness taking off a mask to reveal Nancy Walker was behind the whole thing. Which, I mean, like, I guess you could, whatever.
Yeah.
Fine.
I don't even know if that was supposed to be a twist or just another, like, sight gag.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But the credits roll and it's all over now. So obviously after the credits, what we do here is we go over those deleted scenes. What do you want to see out of this, Dean?
Okay, so there's only one thing in this movie that I laser focused on. Like, I need to know what happened. So there's a point where Perrier, our James Coco's character, the French detective of mystery, leaves the room to prove that the room is disappearing and reappearing through like nefarious means, and he leaves, and then he comes through another door in the dining room, and he is dressed in the butler's clothes after the butler had died. And when they ask him what happened, he says, "Don't ask. I need to know what happened." Because he was only gone for like a minute.
Yeah, actually.
Like, did he?
Now that you bring that up,
what was that?
I completely forgot about that, and I also was expecting that to be explained somehow. And explanation never came, but I don't know why I'm continuing to be disappointed by that, because I'm the fool. But yeah, I really expected that to be. I think there were calculated moments, as if you could use the word calculated, where I was supposed to be tricked into being strung along, which is obviously again the point we just went over. But yeah, I would really like to find out how in the hell he got into such a mix-up.
Right.
And I guess the only deleted scene I would have, other than that, now that I've remembered, is I really want to see Lionel Twain running around the mansion in the first bit, because obviously he gets his grand entrance, but he's the guy running around replacing the gargoyles, sweeping things up, etc.
Crawling into the wall and getting into Moose's heads.
Yeah, and Truman Capote's a pretty short, squirrely guy. I mean, I would really like to see his that chubby little body just like running around everywhere, breathing heavy and speaking to himself. I think it would be pretty funny, but you kind of stole the better deleted scene, I think. So good on you.
Damn, I'm good at this.
Yeah. And I guess that would be it for Murder by Death. We're going to get into Knives Out right after this message. Hey, Dean, did you hear about my new podcast?
Nah, fool, what is it?
I started a podcast where I review different colors of custom paint and how fast they dry.
Well, that's cool, but
Are you going to tune in?
I'll let you know what I think, but you should probably find something that doesn't suck and use Anchor.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free.
I like free.
It's a super easy way to record, edit, and distribute your podcast to platforms like Spotify and Apple Music, all without having to overcomplicate the process. You can even make money with no minimum listenership.
I like money.
And you'll make plenty of money if you have a better idea for a podcast. You have an idea for a podcast that's more exciting than watching paint dry? Then you should head over to Anchor.
Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right, we're back with another. This movie, watching it the second time around, can confirm is probably my favorite movie of the 2010s. That will be Knives Out. Dean, give me your first impressions, because this was the first time you saw it. This is the second time I've seen it.
Yeah, so this is the first time I've seen it. I did have intentions on seeing it as soon as it came out. It's kind of right up my alley. I like murder mysteries. I like, thrillers, stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I can say I was not disappointed. I was very impressed by this film. The plot's good, the characters are good, the acting's very good. I think I might have been a little thrown because a lot of people describe this as a comedy. Like, it's a comedy, it's a drama, it's a crime film. But I didn't get a lot of comedy out of it. There was a couple of points that I got a laugh out of, but I don't know if I was supposed to be laughing at Daniel Craig's accent. So
no, I think you were.
Yeah.
I would say it's a stretch to label this as a strict comedy. I just think that
there's funny bits.
Yeah, I think it was just trying to be entertaining. Because I think in this way, impressed is a good way to label this movie, because this comes on the tail of Rian Johnson's
oh God,
his helm of Star Wars, The Last Jedi. And
you said its name.
Yeah, I know.
God. I feel disgusted.
The movie that shall not be named. But it's funny, walking out of The Last Jedi, I was not all that familiar with Rian Johnson, in that I didn't recognize the name. And obviously, looking back through his filmography, the dude has, a pedigree. He did Looper. I've never seen Brick, but I've always heard that that's a great movie. I'd even like to see whatever this Evil Demon Golf Ball from Hell is in his filmography.
It just sounds glorious.
Yeah, and everybody says that the Brothers Bloom is also very, very good.
It is kind of interesting because Rian Johnson, it seems to be that he's only really done like 1, 2, 3. He only did 3 movies before he did Star Wars. And I think because Looper was the biggest hit he had before.
Oh yeah.
The Star Wars film that shall not be named, and then he did a couple episodes of Breaking Bad,
which is, I mean, that's high praise.
Yeah, high praise. And then that's it.
Yeah.
And then he makes Knives Out, and I think Knives Out was probably the film he was like, oh, now I have a studio backing me. I have basically a script I want to do. I kind of have all the control I want because I just came off the Star Wars film that shall not be named, but that gives me enough sway to kind of just do whatever I want.
Right.
So I think that's probably why Knives Out is like actually so good, is because he got all that big Disney sway, big dick Disney swinging from Star Wars. So
yeah,
very interesting.
I think looking back at it, my thoughts were that Star Wars was a movie, obviously, that needed to be within its trilogy, right? Everybody came off the heels of Force Awakens, while not enthused about the way that the series was mirroring other Star Wars movies. Pretty excited to see what was going to come next, and
yeah. Well, Force Awakens, I've always argued, it was we're getting everything back on track Star Wars movie.
And,
it was
while the argument that everybody was disappointed in the way that it did a lot of repeated things. I mean, that movie is, it's pretty tight. It's pretty decent. And I really
it
and that's
functions as a popcorn movie.
Yeah, I very much liked Force Awakens. It's just I say decent because I know what people actually think about it. Whereas The Last Jedi, being the next movie in that, well, we know what the problem is. It's that giving it to Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson is obviously somebody who has a history of trying to, what's the word? Flip expectations is, I guess, what you could say.
Yeah, I think a lot of what he is good at is taking these genre films. I guess Looper would be the easiest pick. It's a time travel film, but it's not a straight time travel movie.
Yeah, it's kind of crime. And it's kind of a dystopian movie.
It's almost like a father-son movie with yourself.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Granted, I mean, we really couldn't. We can't put all the blame of Star Wars on Rian Johnson anyway.
No,
it's a Star Wars movie. Most of the decisions were probably made in a boardroom and not on, and not in a writer's room.
Yeah, I doubt very much that they would have given him full free reign to just mess with the details of this trilogy. Especially because the whole time, J.J. Abrams was there to supervise things. I mean, he never was just gone away completely. It's kind of interesting you say the father-son thing too, because it's interesting to notice how a lot of his movies have to do with very close, familial type relationships. I mean, obviously, Brothers Bloom. You could argue that, Looper is sort of a father-son movie, and then Knives Out is, well, very blatantly a family movie, a family story that is.
Also, to give the audience some reason why we're talking so long about Star Wars and Rian Johnson, is this movie is a very good example of what he actually makes.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Whereas if you've only seen Star Wars, that's not Rian Johnson.
Yeah, I think that's, I guess, the tangential point I was trying to make is that, historically speaking, with the release of this movie, everybody was kind of bagging on him when this movie is a perfect example of exactly what he can do given free reign to just go hard. This movie is exactly what should happen when the director gets to be the auteur and has all of the control over what they want to do in the film. And if they had the skill like Rian Johnson, they could make an absolute home run of a movie like this. So yeah, maybe we should just let's cut to the chase and get right to the plot of what's going on here. Another star-studded cast.
Oh, very.
Yeah, we get introduced to them pretty straight away on the morning of our deceased member's funeral. Christopher Plummer playing
Harlan Thrombey.
what a name.
That's good.
And we are introduced then to characters like Ana de Armas, our main character, and Marta Cabrera. Particular emphasis made on that, though, of course, because this is a whodunit movie, there needs to be very, memorable, stereotypical names. The characters.
Yeah. A lot of these characters are very kind of stereotypical. Like, they're very easily identifiable.
Yeah. And, we get other characters like Jamie Lee Curtis playing Linda Drysdale, Harlan Thrombey's, I guess, main daughter is what you could say. Or no, she's his only daughter.
Yes. Yeah. She's the only daughter.
We have then Michael Shannon, Walton Thrombey, the left-hand man's son, I guess is what you could say. Tony Collette playing.
I need to make a note. Michael Shannon in this movie plays both pathetic and terrifying all at the same time, and it's great.
Oh yeah, everybody in this movie does a fantastic job at their character. It's particularly, speaking of Tony Collette, Jenny Thrombey playing probably what is supposed to be a spoof of what's her name that does that Goop company, that actress.
I don't know, but I do know that Joni is the worst aunt on the planet. She is every annoying aunt at Christmas. She is that character.
Yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow, that's who it is.
Okay.
Yeah, she's exactly that type, has a skincare company and all this stuff. We get to see Don Johnson as Richard Drysdale, obviously the asshole son-in-law. We get Ricky Lindholm, who's supposed to be Walt's wife, but she never really makes a whole lot of noise in this movie.
I think she only has like 2 or 3 lines.
Yeah.
And they're almost, and I think those lines are almost entirely just to make it known that she exists.
Yeah, it kind of just seems like, because the character I guess she kind of plays is the enforcer wife to Walt. It seems very much like she's just there because she feels like she can control Walt, because Walt is a very pushover style person. Very controllable, very dependent upon his father as he runs his father's publishing company, as we'll see in a minute. We finally, to wrap up the cast of characters, get to see Jaden Martell playing the little asshole, Twitter bait, MAGA kid.
The 4chan lord.
Yeah. Lakeith Stanfield, who I'm a fan of, plays Detective Lieutenant Elliot. Detective, it's weird he has 2 names listed here, but he's Detective Lieutenant Elliot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then finally, at the end of everything, we get the piece de resistance of the story, Daniel Craig playing Detective Benoit Blanc.
Yes. There's a lot of people in this movie, and there are still people who show up later.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of like real like name worthy stars, like people you would recognize immediately.
Yeah.
In the film, and they do a damn fine job.
Oh my God.
They got the money's worth out of this.
It's like amazing. I don't think you could have mixed the ingredients any better with this movie. But they all come together on the day of the funeral, and there's obviously questioning going on because
Walter Thornby committed suicide, but no one would suspect him of, or sorry, not Walter, Harlan Thornby. Harlan Thornby, Christopher Plummer's character, committed suicide, right. And everybody's like, whoa, he would never do such a thing, but since the family's coming together, they're just like, well, look, if he's dead, we get his cash. So
yeah,
can you speed up the investigation?
It's a stereotypical setup for a murder mystery whodunit. The victim was very sought after, I guess you could say, and there's a reason to investigate. And
there is a point to be made is also that Harlan is this world famous mystery writer. He has
Right.
all these books. He's written basically his entire life, self-made millionaire, and also he is crazy rich
Oh,
because he
unfathomably wealthy.
yeah, because it's a point in this movie that the reason the kids and all the family want the inheritance from him is because he basically pays for everything already.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the kids actually have money on their own.
No, to go. I guess if you want to thumb through the list, Linda Drysdale, though she is the most self-made of them all, still received a $1 million loan from her father. Obviously, Walt Thromby, as we said earlier, runs the publishing company to his writing empire. I think that they said it was because I like the name Blood Like Wine.
Yeah. Also, that's a bitchin' name.
Yeah,
by the way,
Harlan Thrombey's a bitchin' author.
that
I mean, dude literally has
guy's got class.
He literally has a throne of knives. Like,
we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
In a minute. It's pretty good.
Obviously, Don Johnson's character Richard Drysdale kind of rides the coattails of Linda Drysdale. Joni Thromby is apparently the wife of a deceased. What's that?
Oh, Joni Thromby. She's the wife of his deceased son, so she gets a allowance every month. Is that what the shtick is for her?
Yeah, I guess they get money to pay for her daughter Meg Thromby, played by Catherine Langford, for her tuition for her, as they label it, SJW degree, which is, it's I like, again, another thing I like about this movie is that it pokes fun on every side.
Yeah.
And then we actually get to finally meet in the middle of the
movie.
Yeah, towards the middle of the movie, at the reading of the will, I believe it is, Ransom Drysdale, who is played by Chris Evans,
Captain America.
I mean, son of a bitch!
He's good.
What a character to include in this movie. I mean, I think he is my favorite player. If I can't choose Daniel Craig, like I think it's just like that Chris Evans' acting chops finally get to really breathe in this movie.
Oh yeah. I think it's an understatement because Chris Evans, more recently has always been cast as like a hero character, very redeemable, all these things, but he has such chops playing a douchebag. Oh
yeah, I mean,
he is so good playing just like an actual douchebag character.
Yeah, I guess to look it up, because I'm wondering, he's obviously for the past decade been I don't want to say bogged down, that's not the right way to put it, but tied to the Captain America character. And on the peripherals of that, we had movies like Snowpiercer, which probably isn't that far away from being the Captain America character.
Was that an airplane or was that a helicopter?
Probably a helicopter. We're good.
Yeah. Oh no, he's been in Push. He's been in Scott Pilgrim. He was in.
That was kind of pre the Captain America thing, because I guess the point I'm trying to make is he's had a few parts here and there that really don't venture far from action or romantic comedy, because he is also Adonis. But I think he's always had this ability because of maybe other movies like. Yeah, Scott Pilgrim. One I always think about is Not Another Teen Movie, where he's pretty funny in that.
Oh yeah.
We won't talk about Fantastic Four, but I know he's had this ability to be dramatic, and it shows up in the Avengers movies. But it's always into the guys that I think those movies, while they have good performances, are partially. You're going to like the performance anyways because of the content. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As much as
Everybody knows what they're there for.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what to expect.
and
They're very safe movies.
yeah, well, and safe, but not to say that they aren't great movies, because they are really good. It's just that they aren't going to get you the performance that he gets in this movie, and it's, ooh,
Yeah.
yeah,
But on that note, so the investigation is underway at the house.
yes, as
They're interviewing the family.
yeah, they very specifically mention the game as a foot, Watson, because that's another thing that is obvious about this that kind of connects to Murder by Death, is that there's a lot of called attention to the fact that this is a whodunit story,
Yes.
but much more in a fresh way. Marta is revealed to have murdered accidentally Harlan Thrombey in the form of somebody somehow got the vials mixed up. Obviously, at this point, it's Marta, but it's, again, spoiler alert, going to be revealed later on that something else has happened. And
Yes.
while it seems pretty apparent at this point that it's like she wouldn't have just given him the wrong dosage, it's certainly, I think there was an attempt made to make it seem like she was like intoxicated at the time, because they mention her having had a glass of champagne, so she needs to get home, and they go to sit down for their nightly go match, and they're having fun, and she gives him his dose of drugs, and then it's like, all right, want to have some fun, let's give you a little tick of morphine,
because I guess Harlan has it's like his pain medication.
Yeah, it's supposed to be, I believe it was 100 milligrams of the medication he receives for pain medication, and then the morphine is to help him go to sleep. But obviously, the 3 milligrams of morphine can kind of make you a little
wonky.
It'll make your back feel good, I guess, how you can put it.
Yeah.
And
and there's a mix-up.
That's the mix-up, and this is all being done kind of in flashback, where now there's this really cool sequence, actually, of we go back through what Marta had to do in order to make it seem like she didn't do anything, as well as what Harlan is planning to have her do, because he's telling her all of this so that she can get away, because she's obviously wanting to do the right thing and call an ambulance, and Harlan immediately sees that because she's an immigrant, and it's her mother that's an immigrant, that she could get in a lot of trouble if this was to happen, which is very sweet.
Yes.
It's a very sweet this movie has a really good job of getting us to care about not only Marta, but Marta and Harlan's relationship as characters in this moment, because that is such a selfless thing, to be able to look right in the face of death and think about,
just say, I got it.
Yeah,
it's cool.
And think about somebody else. I mean, wow, it's really good, really, really good. But the sequence plays out, Marta gets away, and we finally get back to that morning, where Detective Benoit Blanc and Marta finally meet.
On that note, Daniel Craig is doing Foghorn Leghorn voice through the entire movie, and it throws me right off.
Really good job at it, though. I mean, I think he was really good at playing Southern.
I mean, like it might just be the fact that I know what a Southern accent is in real life, and that is Foghorn Leghorn, sir. Or it might just, honestly, it's probably the fact that I've only ever heard him do his natural like James Bond accent, or James Bond voice. So I just, every time I see him open his mouth, I'm just like, where's the twist? You're actually English. Come on.
Yeah.
But
that
is the only part of the movie that's kind of off-putting for me, is just how he talks, because it's really weird. He does a good performance, it's just his voice is just awkward.
I guess I think it's very natural in a way. He plays certain moments very naturally, and it kind of makes you sink into the comfortability a little bit more. It's certainly a little jarring at first to see Daniel Craig, who, like you said, we've only seen running around the world blowing up things and going, hello, it's like
yes, exactly. Hello there.
And I don't know. I really liked it from the get go because it's like he plays, yeah, like you said, Foghorn Leghorn. You know, I have a hanky in my pocket, very gentlemanly Southern, and
Yeah.
but he does it full throttle, and I think because of the dedication to the choice, it becomes all the better for it. Plus the character itself needs to be a little ridiculous. I mean, he's the detective of the story, and that character is always a little ridiculous. Diamond from the last movie. And, you know, there's a lot of comedy to be had too in the ridiculousness of the characters, which is, I think, probably where people got that this was a comedy.
Mhm.
But lest you be fooled, this is a drama, dude. I mean, if the moment between Harlan and Marta wasn't enough of a proof of that, just wait till we get to the third act of this movie.
Oh yeah. This movie changes a lot as the movie goes on.
Yeah, there's plenty of reversals, and to start getting to those reversals, obviously Marta knows what she did, and Detective Benoit Blanc has no idea. She is tied to him because of her fatal flaw, which I love how apparent and how well it's used, that she cannot lie because she will throw up.
She has a like a condition where if she lies, she vomits.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where she doesn't really know why she does it, but you know, it's something that's happened ever since she's a kid. And I like that it's just one of those. It's so simple when you think about it, and a writer probably would never think to just be like, I don't know, just make her throw up when she lies, because
that sounds like something you would write in and be like, I'm just gonna write this in so I can get through the sentence, and I'll come back and change it to something else later.
Oh yeah,
and you just never changed it.
But it becomes such an integral part of the plot that you'd think it would be a MacGuffin, but it really isn't. This is really important to the rest of the movie, so pay attention to that. But you know, she is questioned by Benoit Blanc, and it's confirmed when she throws up into one of the flower pots on the patio. And the partnership is made. Benoit Blanc makes the decision that they are going to solve the murder together. And obviously that makes Marta terrified on the inside because she still thinks that she did it. So obviously the investigation begins. People are questioned, and they start patrolling the property in order to figure things out. And we've gone in from one quarter of the movie. I guess the first half hour, you could say, is the setup of what all has transpired to this point of Marta and Benoit Blanc coming together. And this next half hour is kind of the next bit where, up until the reading of the will, we get to see her having to cover her tracks and throw Blanc off her trail. Even though, like we said, it's like, you know, she didn't necessarily have a trail per se. Because there is something fishy going on at this point in the movie where you know that she's not necessarily at fault here. There is something off about the whole situation. Because how could a person who is so good be so guilty?
Actually, so I think this was what happened with you in Murder by Death happened with me in this movie.
Okay.
Because I thought the whole Knives Out and the whodunit, I thought this was playing, and I thought that was the twist. It was a whodunit, but we knew Marta did it.
Right.
And this was, the whole movie was basically building up to her trying to cover up the murder and then frame one of the far worse characters in the film for it.
Right.
Was what it was. Like, I thought that was what was gonna, like, the big reveal was gonna be, that the rest of the conversation with Harlan wasn't just, this is how you're gonna get away with it, but this is how you're gonna frame somebody in the family to do it, because they're actually the evil one. What you did was a mistake. Somebody else deserves to go down for this, and it's not you. And that, I thought that was gonna be the twist.
Yeah.
I'm kind of glad it wasn't, but like, that's what I vibed on for the movie. I thought she did it, but there was going to be a different kind of twist. Like turns out she was like chaotic evil the whole time.
Yeah, but I think that's one of the beautiful things is while I think I thought that too, because I saw this while it was still showing, like on Thanksgiving, I think, and yeah, I think so. Yeah. And while I was watching it, I think I also thought that for a moment, but I guess it was one of those things where I kind of realized in the moment where, oh, if that's like the ending to this movie, that's actually really dark and kind of unresolved. So I was expecting something else to come, but I still like that the movie I had no clue what it would be.
Oh yeah, that ending is real open until the big reveal, basically.
And right at the very end, practically. So we get certain moments like they go to check the security tapes, and Marta is able to erase the tapes. We have the footprints, stereotypical to any movie, but Marta messes them up deliberately as like oh what? Oh, I'm so sorry. I had no clue I was stepping right in the mud.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, there's a moment where obviously she has to climb up the trestle to the 3rd story window, and there's a piece broken off, but she has the dogs go fetch it in order to keep it away from Blanc. There's a lot of covering up clues here. And then we have the will reading, which is obviously, since they've found nothing up to this point, supposed to be where we kind of get something else. We get another lead. But that lead is just supporting the Marta's motive to murder Harlan even more, as it's
Harlan
revealed.
leaves everything?
What?
Because Harlan leaves everything to Marta.
Oh yeah, he leaves the whole shebang to her. The house, the money, the books, everything.
Yeah, every last dime, everything he has, the family gets dick.
Yeah, and the family obviously goes crazy over this. Everyone except
they're all money hungry loons.
Yeah, everybody except Meg, who seems to have a pretty good and sympathetic relationship to Marta because of her quite liberal status, I must admit.
I think it's like a lot of it's like the age, because they look like the same age.
That too
is a lot more what it is. Yeah,
that too. I think though to this moment she's very. There's a level to which I thought she just felt sorry for Marta, and I think this is start to where this becomes where the character seems a little bit more like she finds how she actually likes Marta.
Yeah.
And, the family basically chases her out of the house, trying to figure out what's going on and getting her to surrender things and yada, yada, yada.
Mm-hmm.
Her car won't start, and who pulls up to save the day? Ransom.
Captain America.
Yeah, in the Captain America mobile. Even though it's a German engineered vehicle, Ransom Drysdale pulls up and waves her into the passenger seat of his car, and they make their getaway. And obviously then the family is left to figure out what the fuck is going on, where they go to a restaurant somewhere, some roadside piece, and they talk things out. Marta reveals to Ransom, the story of what's going on in an attempt to try and make sense of everything, because she doesn't have any idea what's going on. And that's when some more things are flashed back to, and then flash forward to see that now Ransom gets everything. Now this section of the movie becomes another twist on the plot and story, where before we thought that Marta was just going to have to get away with all this on her own. Now we see that, okay, Ransom believes that she's quote unquote innocent and that she deserves the inheritance, but that in order to help her get away, he wants his cut of the inheritance.
Honestly, when I was watching this for the first time, I might just because it's Chris Evans, and I thought there was going to be like this like romantic subplot going on after that point in the movie. Did you get that vibe?
Yeah, but well,
and that wasn't, I don't even know if that was because that was like how it was played. Honestly, I thought it was just because it's Chris Evans, and that's kind of how this plays out.
I think it was because I read in the initial watch, I read Ransom's "I Want My Cut of the Inheritance," as there was still a sliver of his family in there. His whole listen. I'm not just going to help you get away with this and be nice because I probably still have plenty of riches and to fall back on. It's that I still want my cut in order to help you get away. So part of me thought, if there was going to be a romantic plot, it was going to be in an attempt to fool her into getting more of the money. One of those things where like maybe there's a marriage where they'll get to split, and that's how he has to get his inheritance, though he would be stealing the whole inheritance or something like this.
Okay.
But again, Johnson does a really good job at keeping the deception wide open. So now the attempt has to be made to figure out what's going on below Benoit Blanc's nose, who is still investigating on his side without any leads. They are also trying to figure things out, and they have to go get the toxicology report for Harlan Thrombey because of the drugs that were, again, at this point, it's made very apparent that something was switched. They go to the blood work facility, unnamed blood work facility, and it's been burnt down. Obviously a twist. And this is where the
low speed chase,
as it's labeled, the worst car chase ever, it happens. Though I love this car chase.
It is the Ford Bronco on the 5 freeway of 2019.
Yeah. Marta's car, as it's probably apparent, is the help's car.
Total piece of shit.
It doesn't go below. Yeah, its stick shift doesn't go above 50 miles an hour. The seats are barely big enough to fit inside the car, and they lead them on a chase through down the highway and then through town because they have to get to this address that was emailed to Marta in order to meet with somebody who left one of those, I know you did it notes.
Yeah.
Another thing I want people to keep in mind because of what will come at the end. So obviously they're caught in the middle of the chase because Marta's car sucks. And her, let alone her ability to lose the cops, I might add. But they basically are supposed to be arrested and escorted back to the police station, though then Ransom takes the fall.
Yeah.
Quite
he says, "No, I was the one who made her take the drive like that," and sends her to, and basically gives her the opportunity to go to the meetup to see who left her the note. And there we see, dun dun dun,
the maid.
Yes, but the maid is dead when she arrives, and the note is gone.
Yeah,
there is still a killer on the loose.
Still a killer on the loose, and still a lot of questions to be answered. At this point, while you might think, oh no, Marta's on her own, she calls an ambulance for the maid and is taken in by Benoit Blanc. And you kind of think that, yeah, this is the low point. This is where the gig is up. But we still got a half hour left, or really it's about 45 minutes, which is interesting because of how the movie goes from here. Keep mind of that shape. Benoit Blanc and her talk at the hospital where Fran is being treated, the maid. And Blanc, while it should be very apparent that Marta is guilty, isn't convinced. And now the game shifts again, I guess you could say, because Blanc and Marta have to figure out, okay, Marta obviously didn't do something here, because the ultimate cause of death was that Harlan, well, he slit his throat. So what's really going on?
He didn't have any overdose in his system.
Yeah.
He didn't have any of the morphine.
Well, hold on.
No?
Well, okay.
Is there something going on here?
Yeah, so this might be a part that gets edited out because I don't think it's revealed at that point yet. Though this is the game we were playing.
Are we going to talk about the ending?
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the ending. I mean, we'll get to the
We're
spoilers.
going to talk about the reveal?
Yeah, we'll definitely get to the reveal. It's a very important part.
Buddy.
But I don't know if it's actually at this part that we think about that. I think it's just that Blanc and her are on this understanding that there's something else going on here.
Yeah, and then Blanc and Marta, they understand that there's something else going on, and then Marta basically resolves that she's just gonna give all the inheritance to the family.
Yeah.
And to like clear her conscience. And then they go to the house, and that's when Benoit Blanc has the epiphany of what really happened when he sees the toxicology report.
Yeah.
Right? I'm right up to that point.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what goes on. It's very subtle. You know, he's handed basically the piece of paper that's the toxicology report, and he has his little light bulb moment because of what will become apparent in a moment. He sends the family out of the room and basically says that for Marta that she's keeping the inheritance. He whispers something to one of the detectives, not Lakeith Stanfield, but the other player, Noah Segan, who's Trooper Ragnar, who's like this kind of in the background. I'm a total fan of Harlan Thrombey characters, kind of just comedic relief, really. But, he sends everybody out of the room, and then everything is explained to Marta, Lieutenant Elliot, and Trooper Wagner.
Yeah.
And as it's explained, they bring back in Chris Evans, and they basically trick him because Blanc...
Also, we should say spoilers now. This is where we get to the
spoilers
how things happened.
Yeah, very much so spoilers, and very much so. Please go watch this because it's a thick of detail that we might get out of place. So obviously we aren't going to do exact justice to watching it, but it's basically revealed that Chris Evans, in an argument that there were plenty of arguments that were called back to with Harlan by different family members as a way to give everybody a motive for his murder. It's called back to Chris Evans' argument with Harlan that it wasn't just about Harlan's place in the inheritance that was being taken away,
or Ransom's place in the inheritance.
It was about, it's about Ransom's place in the inheritance. It was about everybody's place in the inheritance, but that is when it's revealed specifically that it was Marta who's getting all the money. We already knew, obviously, that she was because of the will reading, but we also didn't know that we only knew that Ransom knew that nobody was getting money. We didn't know that Ransom knew that Marta was getting the money, and that's when the thread is spun that it was he had a plan basically to go back, switch the medication with the morphine, and make it so that Marta was going to kill Harlan accidentally. I guess that's what you would call framing her, so that the inheritance would go back to the family. But obviously, because of what happens and because of the strength of this story, everything goes wrong when both Marta is too good of a person to just let that go, and Harlan is too close to Marta to let that go as well. And
they devise a way to make it look like he just straight committed suicide instead of it being a murder. And then Marta is like, oh, I'm just too innocent to have done anything, and covers up her tracks. And then Chris Evans' character, Ransom, has to figure out a way to reframe her for murder.
Yeah, and that's why he goes along with her in that that third fourth of the movie. And it's actually very interesting to think about after viewing it a second time that if she was just trying to get away, right, Harlan would have known, while Marta may not have realized, that just getting away wasn't going to get her out of the situation because the medications were wrong.
Mhm.
So him slitting his throat, while I kind of glossed over it upon the first watch, this second time I was like, wow, he realizes that he needed to go all the way, and the willingness to slit your own throat for somebody is like, I mean, based upon this reveal, just even deeper.
That's hardcore.
Yeah, that's very compelling, I guess is what I would call it. And obviously, you know, while Evans doesn't give up the confession right away, we read off the details as Berta gets a call that Fran is still alive, and Ransom had tried to kill Fran because she saw him go back and try to switch the evidence in the crime scene after the fact during the funeral.
Mhm.
Which then obviously made it so that he had to go kill Fran. And like I said, there's a lot of detail here that you need to go watch.
There's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah, realizing that it's a mouthful now, but bottom line is they trick Ransom into revealing that he did kill Fran, because it's revealed after he finally admits to attempted murder that she is actually dead. So now he's basically admitted to her, well, first degree murder. Which obviously incriminates him enough to reveal that he was the reason behind Harlan's death, which I don't know if that's like manslaughter or third degree murder or what. But he's going away for a long time.
Yeah.
No kidding. And that's kind of like the resolution here. There's a nice moment where Blanc and Marta get to have a little, I guess you'd call it prologue, or epilogue. Yeah, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, epilogue.
And Blanc reveals that Marta survived the whole thing, not because she did it Harlan's way, but because she did it her way, which is
being a good person paid off.
Very heartwarming. Very hard. Did not think this movie was going to have such heartwarming moments, but wow, it really gives you the fuzzies inside.
It is nice. The end of the movie does have a nice little just, we did it, boys.
Yeah, very satisfying, because Ransom is wheeled away. The family is left and destitute because they are all greedy bastards. And they all look up to the balcony to see Marta wrapped in a blanket, the cup of hot cocoa that very funnily says, "My house, my rules, my coffee."
The end.
And what a wonderful end it is.
So that was Knives Out. Let's get into, I guess, the comparisons of these films. And as we like to do, so how much do you think Knives Out cost to make? Now, I will let you know, since it's a recent movie, we don't have an exact number, but we do have an estimate.
Yeah, this is actually very interesting, because I've seen the box office already. I know it was a success, and for fuck's sake, it'd be pretty hard to say that this movie would be anything other than a success. But I'm going to guess, because of the proportion of box office it made, around 50 million.
50 million to make?
Yeah.
Ooh, little too high.
Okay.
We got 40 mil was the estimate.
Fair, because
40 million to make it.
Well, I don't think the star power was the thing that made it so expensive. You know, I kind of feel like, because I think it was, as Bryan Cranston once said, if the material is A, then you're more than willing to do the work.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what a lot of these people said, or must have said to Johnson, because the script had to have been so good. I haven't read it myself, but I need to soon, that there's no way you wouldn't want to do this movie. I think it was more to the point that, because the other thing that's very interesting about this movie is it's all practical effects. There's no special effects.
There's no CGI. There's one CGI effect in this movie, and it's the painting of Harlan in the film, because it wasn't finished when the production was being done. So that painting, that big painting in the foyer, that's actually a completely CGI painting.
But I'll let that slide, because it's just a still. You could probably do that in Photoshop and then put it. It's no, not to say
there's no Star Wars.
I mean, I can't believe I was about to say that it was no After Effects job, because these definitely don't use After Effects, but
It's true.
you know, this movie is. I really enjoyed the fact that every bit of it was just straight filmmaking. You know,
Yeah.
not to say that special effects isn't filmmaking. That's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. It's just pretty pure in its filmmaking.
Well, yeah. But oh, and I almost forgot to help people out there. So the cumulative worldwide gross for this movie was a little over $300 million. So it was a huge success.
Yeah.
It was it got greenlit for a sequel. So that's also some news going
Now
out.
that's
It's in
interesting
pre-production.
because I'm trying to think here. Like, how would you?
So, well, the sequel, it's just supposed to follow Benoit Blanc. It's just supposed to follow Daniel Craig's character
okay.
onto his next mystery.
I'd actually like that very much.
Yes. Now, Murder by Death. Now, this movie is old as sin. So 1976, I'm going to use that period money.
Sure.
I'm not adjusting for inflation.
Sure.
And it is also hard as balls to find the budget for this movie. So I had to get a pretty good estimate for this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you can do an over under on this one.
I mean that light show is probably pretty expensive at the time.
Right.
I'm gonna say over 2.5 million to make, under 5 million to make.
This clocks in just around 3 million from what I could find. Right around the 3 million mark.
Right on the money.
Right on the money. Now, the amount this movie made is a little more interesting. Like, would you say this movie was a success?
I'm only going to say yes because of name recognition. I don't think that the people were necessarily satisfied to go back or like tell people to go see it or whatever. But then again, for the time, this was actually probably decent. So
yeah. So this movie, the box office was $32 million.
That's good.
So it was, it was a smash success.
Yeah, for what it is.
In terms of
that's interesting because like for the time, even that probably wasn't like a huge nationwide success, but that's 10 times the budget. So it's like, yeah, they made their money back.
To put it in perspective, so this movie came out the same year as Rocky.
Yeah.
Rocky made $55 million, and it was the highest grossing movie of the year.
Interesting. So up there.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I guess
also,
ticket prices were probably like way less than what they are now.
Oh god, yeah. But this is great because I got rabbit holed, and I had to look this up. So Murder by Death came out June 23rd, 1976. You know what else came out in June of 76? We have Midway, we have Logan's Run, we have The Omen, and Outlaw Joseph Wales all within a week. Murder by Death was in the middle of those movies being released.
Jesus.
Yeah,
and still managed to make 10 times its budget.
Still managed to make money.
But then again, I mean, none of those, I guess if you really think about it, when you think about like theater, the logistics of like placing movies, all those movies are not, competing with this per se.
Oh yeah, they're all on like a different
in fact, when you
budget.
When you really think about it, those movies are probably competing with each other more than this movie is competing with them.
It's true. Like this was the only like big like comedy that came out in that month. Actually, I think in that summer.
Which is interesting.
If I had to make a shot at
comedies for the summer, but maybe it was just different. I'd be interested to take a really deep look into how studios structured their releases at different points in cinema history, because I'd wonder like what the market demands really were aside from like making movies but selling them as well,
Oh yeah.
That's fascinating.
So that was the fun, that's the money that was made for these movies. So they were both financial successes.
Yeah.
Critically, I believe they both did very well critically.
Oh, I'm sure. Knives Out, duh. We know that. again, it's another movie where it's like this. If it didn't do well critically, there's something wrong with the critics. But I believe it has
Actually-
here 97% on Rotten Tomatoes for whatever that's worth.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm on IMDb and I have 7.9 for Knives Out and 7.4 for Murder by Death.
That's pretty ludicrous for Knives Out, I gotta say.
Oh yeah, like I think that's a little low, but granted, IMDb is always it's
skewed.
really weird how it averages. Yeah.
I wonder what the critic score is on Rotten Tomatoes. Not that, again, I don't give a whole lot of weight. Oh, okay.
To Rotten Tomatoes.
The 97% is the certified fresh for critics, whereas 92% for audience rating. Very good. Good job, guys. I'm glad you like this movie.
Claps all around.
Yeah. And claps to Rian Johnson again.
So, let's get into it. I believe we have a good idea of where you're leaning to, right?
Well, before we get into it, let's get into the deleted scenes for Knives Out. We kind of glossed over that.
Oh God, yes.
What could I say? I think there's a couple things I think about when I think about things I want to see. And I think it's first that I would really like to see the argument between... No, maybe that's not it. So I was about to say the argument between... what are their names? Because I clicked away from it. Don Johnson and Jamie Lee Curtis after the fact, after she finds
out that he's been cheating on her.
Yeah, but maybe I'd also like to see... I actually, here it is. The deleted scene I want to see Jacob Tromby's Twitter.
Oh, it's probably solid gold.
Yeah,
it is probably solid fucking gold.
I need to see. First of all,
this
I think that kid is
unstoppable meme lord.
He's packed with cringe. He's definitely packed full of cringe. But on top of all this, that younger generation is quick-witted, so I kind of need to see that as well. As offensive or ignorant as it might be.
Meme lords for the ages.
Yeah.
Huh. But yeah, no, the true deleted scene is I just want to see him moving all this shit into the mansion. How the fuck did they build the Iron Throne of Knives in the middle of the library and people are like, no, that's fine. Well, what if there's an earthquake or it blows down? Dude, fuck it, it's fine.
Yeah, it's cool. Actually interesting. I found it because I watched this one with somebody and they made it a point that they really liked the I guess you could call it his study or resting room, but Harlan's room at the top of the house where he dies. And we both ended up talking about how we really liked that room, but I kind of came to realize that it's kind of interesting how that room seems when you're watching it like it's underneath everything, because it's no windows and it's very cramped. But the shape of it, obviously it has this element of like being at the top because, well, obviously the staircase leading up, but the shape of it is very rounded out. And it kind of is interesting how that room is symbolic of the mind of Harlan Thrombey.
Yeah. It's very, like cluttered with books and mystery novels in his work and things like that.
Yeah.
He's surrounded by the things he's made. Kind of like,
I'd be very interested to explore the extent to which Rian Johnson designed the house around being an exploration into the mind of Harlan Thrombey as a way of studying the grief that everybody has, because everybody is attached to it, everybody depends on his mind, and then there's also rooms in the house in which people cling on to as a way of kind of trying to communicate with him from beyond the grave. Not to say literally, but like figuratively, they're trying to figure out what he meant, what his intentions were, etc. And the only people really let up into that room are Marta. Other characters are rejected from going in there, like Joni. Chris Evans goes in there, but only to mess with things. If anybody's interested in exploring that, I think that's something I'm going to look into, definitely.
But yeah, so the interesting thing for this, so we got to know which was the better in the double feature.
Oh, you got to be kidding me. It's Knives Out, dude. There's no contest here.
No contest?
No contest. This is a total TKO.
Wow.
Total knockout. Okay.
I mean, I would probably still give it to Knives. I would probably still give it to Knives Out. I think the script in Knives Out is a script and not a stand-up routine like in Murder by Death.
That's funny you say that. It did seem very much like a bunch of comedians coming together to do stick.
So yeah, sorry everybody if this is weird. My headphones died in the middle of this, so might sound weird.
It's fine.
So yeah,
they'll live. But we'll limp to the finish line here. I guess we're both in agreement that Knives Out definitely was the better movie. Though we enjoyed Murder by Death, despite.
I would still recommend Murder by Death if you're just in the mood for like an old style, like comedy. Like if you really wanted to see how like big like comedies in like the 70s kind of were, like I would recommend watching Murder by Death. It is interesting because it is kind of like a good snapshot of what those kind of movies used to be versus what they are now.
I agree. Yeah. So we recommend both, and we hope you watch both with us. That is kind of again getting to the wrapping up of this week of the Double Feature Picture Show. Dean, what are we going to be watching this next week?
Next week we're going to be watching something a little new, a little old, a classic, and a hit. We're going to be watching Groundhog Day and Palm Springs. It's going to be our Deja Vu episode.
Yes. Really excited for this one because, again, we're trying to hit a few of those newer releases every now and again. And this one, it's a really perfect pairing because nobody's really done the whole repeated day story on such in a cinema. What am I saying? In a film, I guess, since Groundhog Day, because it did it so well. And I'm really excited to see how this movie tries to transform that.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one. I think we're going to get a lot of interesting analysis and gags and shtick out of that.
Yeah, and that one I'm sure will be an interesting argument to see which one we liked better. But until next week, that's going to be the Double Feature Picture Show. As we always say, go follow us on the various platforms. We got an Instagram. Dean, what's the Instagram again?
It is double_podcast, or sorry, it is Double Feature_podcast on Instagram. Should be a link in the show notes.
Right, link in the show notes, along with links to our Anchor. We got a YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe. We would enjoy you to be along with us. And if you're listening to this on any other platform like Spotify, follow us to keep on listening. Dean, it was a pleasure. Until next time, adieu.
Peace.